Admiral Vextar stood before the massive display screen in his command center. The screen showed thousands of star systems, each one marked with different colors. Green meant fully controlled by the Empire. Yellow meant under conquest. Red meant rebellion that needed to be crushed. The Empire controlled 847 star systems now, and Vextar felt proud of that number. "Sir, we have the survey reports from the Outer Rim," said his assistant, a thin creature with 4 arms and blue skin. The assistant's voice shook slightly when speaking to the Admiral. Vextar turned his 6 eyes toward the reports. Each report contained information about new worlds the Empire had discovered. Most were empty rocks floating in space. Some had primitive life forms that could be useful as slaves. Very few had anything worth the Empire's attention. He picked up the first report and read it quickly. Planet designation XK-739. No intelligent life. Rich in metals. Approved for mining. He threw the report into the approved pile without another thought. The second report was similar. Planet designation YL-440. Primitive creatures. No technology. Approved for biological harvesting. Another report thrown into the pile. Then he picked up a report that made him pause for just a moment. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. It orbited a yellow star in a system the locals called the Solar System. The report said the planet had one dominant species that called themselves humans. Vextar read the details with growing amusement. The humans had barely left their home planet. They used chemical rockets that moved slower than Imperial cargo ships. Their most powerful weapons were nuclear bombs that could destroy cities, but were nothing compared to Imperial planet crackers. Humans. Vextar said the word and laughed. They still fight wars with each other over pieces of land and resources. They pollute their own planet and argue about how to fix it. They have not even unified their own world government. His assistant looked at the report. The survey team says they have put some small stations in orbit around their planet. They have also sent tiny probes to other planets in their system. Pathetic, Vextar said. A Class 7 civilization at best. They are still playing with fire and sharp sticks compared to our technology. He looked at the images of human vehicles. Their spaceships looked like metal cans with fire coming out the back. Their weapons were crude bullets and explosives. The Admiral flipped through more pages of the report. Humans lived for less than 100 of their local years. They needed to breathe a specific mixture of gases to survive. They could only live on their one planet without special equipment. Everything about them screamed weakness and limitation. "What should we do with them, sir?" his assistant asked. Vextar thought for a moment. The Empire had protocols for dealing with primitive species. They could be enslaved, relocated, or simply ignored until they became useful. Earth had some interesting biological diversity and decent mineral resources, but nothing that could not be found on thousands of other worlds. "File them under future mining operations," Vextar said finally. "Schedule a follow-up survey in 500 cycles. By then they might have developed something worth taking, or they might have destroyed themselves. Either way, we can strip mine their planet when we get around to it." He threw the Earth report into a different pile marked low priority. Monitoring. The pile was already thick with reports of similar primitive worlds. None of them would be visited again for hundreds of years, unless something remarkable happened. "Sir, should we leave monitoring devices in their system?" the assistant asked. "Why waste the resources?" Vextar replied. "What could they possibly do that would threaten the Empire? Their fastest ships would take thousands of years to reach the nearest Imperial world. Their strongest weapons could not even scratch the paint on our smallest patrol craft." What Vextar did not know was that his survey team had been sloppy. They had scanned Earth from a great distance and missed many important details. They had not detected the underground facilities that humans had built. They had not noticed the strange energy readings coming from certain locations on the planet. Most importantly, they had not realized that humans had already found pieces of alien technology. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in North America, Dr. Sarah Chen was working in a laboratory that officially did not exist. The facility was called Project Prometheus, and it was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Only a few dozen people on Earth knew about it. Sarah held a small piece of metal in her hands. The metal was not from Earth. It had been recovered from a crash site in Nevada 50 years ago. The military had been studying it ever since, but they had made little progress until Sarah joined the project 5 years ago. The metal was unlike anything found on Earth. It seemed to bend light around itself. It was incredibly strong, but also incredibly light. Most strange of all, it seemed to respond to human thoughts and emotions. "How are the tests going?" asked Colonel Martinez, the military officer in charge of Project Prometheus. "We are making progress," Sarah replied. "We have figured out how to make the metal change shape by thinking about it. We have also discovered that it can store enormous amounts of energy." Sarah walked over to a workbench covered with electronic equipment. "But the real breakthrough came last week. We figured out how this metal communicates with other pieces of similar metal, no matter how far apart they are." She picked up 2 small pieces of the alien metal. When she touched one piece, the other piece glowed with the same light, even though they were on opposite sides of the room. "They are connected somehow. The connection is instant, faster than light." Colonel Martinez looked impressed but also worried. "What does this mean for the project?" Sarah smiled. "It means we can build communication systems that work across any distance. It means we can build power systems that make nuclear reactors look like flashlights. And if we are really clever, it means we can build propulsion systems that make our current rockets look like horse-drawn carriages." She paused and looked at the alien metal. "But there is something else. We have been detecting signals in the metal, signals that seem to come from space. I think this metal is part of a larger network, and I think we are now connected to that network." Colonel Martinez felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying aliens might know we have their technology?" "I am saying we might be listening in on alien communications without them knowing it," Sarah replied. "And if we can listen, we can learn." As she spoke, the alien metal in her hands pulsed with a soft light. Somewhere in space, Imperial communication. Networks carried routine messages between ships and planets. The networks had been secure for thousands of years, protected by encryption that no primitive species could possibly break. But humans were not trying to break the encryption. They were using the alien metal to tap directly into the quantum foundation that made the networks possible. Every message, every tactical report, every technical specification was flowing through the metal and into human databases. The Empire thought Earth was a primitive backwater world not worth a second glance. They had no idea that humans were already watching them, learning from them, and preparing to surprise them in ways that would reshape the galaxy forever. Admiral Vextar finished reviewing the last of his reports and prepared to leave his command center. He had more important things to worry about than primitive species on distant worlds. The Empire had real enemies to fight and real conquests to plan. He never looked at the Earth report again. 5 years had passed since Admiral Vextar dismissed Earth as unimportant. During those years, the Galactic Empire continued its expansion across the galaxy. 3 more star systems fell under Imperial control. The Empire's massive warships, each one the size of a small city, crushed any resistance they encountered. The Empire's latest conquest was a system called Kepler 442. The aliens there had advanced technology and strong defenses, but they still fell within 6 months. Imperial news broadcasts celebrated the victory and announced that the Empire now controlled 850 star systems. On Earth, nobody celebrated the Imperial victories. In fact, most humans did not even know the Empire existed. The world's governments had decided to keep the existence of hostile aliens secret to prevent panic. Only a small group of scientists, military officers, and world leaders knew the truth. Dr. Sarah Chen was now the director of Project Prometheus. The secret facility under the Rocky Mountains had grown enormously. What started as a single laboratory was now a vast underground complex with thousands of workers and billions of dollars in funding. "Show me the latest test results," Sarah said to her assistant, Dr. James Park. James activated a holographic display that showed the outline of a spacecraft. The ship was sleek and dark, nothing like the bulky rockets that humans usually built. It was only 200 meters long, tiny compared to Imperial dreadnoughts, but it incorporated technology that the Empire had never seen before. "We have completed the first prototype," James said. "We are calling it Reaper 1. It incorporates all of our breakthrough discoveries from the alien technology." Sarah studied the design carefully. The ship looked almost organic, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow. Tell me about the power system. We cracked the secret of micro-black hole generation, James replied. The ship's core contains a black hole smaller than an atom, but it produces more energy than a nuclear power plant. The black hole is contained in a field that we learned to create from the alien metal. Sarah nodded. The breakthrough in black hole technology had come 2 years ago, after they decoded more Imperial communication networks. The Empire used large black holes to power their biggest ships, but they had never figured out how to make small ones stable. Humans had solved that problem by thinking about it differently. What about the armor? Sarah asked. Quantum phase armor, James said proudly. The ship exists partially outside normal space-time. Enemy weapons pass right through it most of the time. When the ship needs to fire its own weapons, it shifts back into normal space for just a few seconds. The quantum phase technology was perhaps humanity's greatest discovery. By studying the alien metal, they learned that space and time were not as solid as everyone thought. With the right energy patterns, matter could be shifted between different layers of reality. Sarah walked over to another display that showed the ship's weapons systems. And the armaments? Force unweaving cannons, James said. They don't just destroy matter, they break apart the fundamental forces that hold atoms together. Anything hit by these weapons doesn't explode or melt. It simply stops existing in any recognizable form. The weapons technology had been developed after humans intercepted Imperial technical manuals. The Empire's weapons worked by applying massive amounts of energy to targets. Human weapons worked by removing the energy that held targets together. It was the difference between hitting something with a hammer and making the something forget how to be solid. How many prototypes do we have now? Sarah asked. 37, James replied. Each one is designed to test different aspects of our new technology. Some focus on speed and stealth, others focus on weapons and defense. A few are designed to manipulate space and time around them. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and fear. Humanity had accomplished something incredible. They had taken alien technology and improved upon it in ways the aliens never imagined, but she also knew that their creations were incredibly dangerous. Have we conducted any full-scale tests? She asked. James nodded and brought up a new display. It showed the outer solar system, near Jupiter. Last month, we tested Reaper 1's weapons on one of Jupiter's smaller moons. The moon was about 50 kilometers wide. The display showed a small gray world orbiting the giant planet. Then there was a brief flash of light, and the moon was gone. Not destroyed or broken apart, but completely gone as if it had never existed. The weapons worked perfectly, James said. Too perfectly, actually. We had to be very careful about where we aimed them. A few degrees off target, and we might have accidentally erased Jupiter itself. Sarah stared at the display. Humanity had built weapons that could erase planets. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. What about defenses? Can the Empire's weapons hurt our ships? We have been monitoring Imperial fleet movements and studying their tactics, James replied. Their weapons are powerful, but they rely on brute force. Our ships can phase out of normal space-time when under attack. From their perspective, their weapons simply pass through empty space. The monitoring of Imperial fleets had been ongoing for 3 years. Using the alien communication networks, humans could track every Imperial ship in the galaxy. They knew where the fleets were going, what missions they were on, and what weaknesses they had. Show me the Imperial fleet positions, Sarah said. The display changed to show a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of red dots indicated Imperial fleet positions. Most of them were clustered around recently conquered systems, establishing control and building infrastructure. A few were moving toward new targets for conquest. They still have not sent another survey mission to Earth, James noted. As far as they know, we are still a primitive species playing with chemical rockets. Sarah smiled. The Empire's ignorance was humanity's greatest advantage. While Imperial fleets conquered other star systems with overwhelming force, humans had been quietly building a fleet that operated on completely different principles. How long until we are ready for field testing? Sarah asked. The ships are ready now, James replied. But we need to be careful about how we reveal them. If we show our hand too early, the Empire might send their entire fleet to Earth before We are ready for full-scale war. Sarah nodded. The Project Prometheus team had run countless simulations of battles between human ships and Imperial fleets. In small engagements, human ships dominated completely, but the Empire had thousands of ships spread across the galaxy. If they all came to Earth at once, even humanity's advanced technology might not be enough. We need to wait for the right opportunity, Sarah said. Something that will let us test our ships against Imperial forces without revealing the full scope of our capabilities. As she spoke, the alien communication networks crackled with new transmissions. Imperial scouts had detected unusual energy readings in the Alpha Centauri system, just 4 light-years from Earth. The readings were coming from human deep space monitoring stations that had been established to watch for Imperial activity. Sarah and James watched as the transmissions were decoded and displayed. An Imperial reconnaissance fleet was being dispatched to investigate the energy readings. 12 ships, including 2 heavy cruisers and a command vessel. This is our chance, Sarah said quietly. A small Imperial force investigating what they think is just unusual sensor activity. Perfect for testing our capabilities. James looked worried. If we destroy an entire Imperial fleet, won't that alert the Empire that Earth is more dangerous than they thought? Sarah smiled coldly. Not if there are no survivors to report back. And not if we make it look like they encountered some kind of natural phenomenon rather than enemy action. She turned to address the entire control room. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare Reaper 1 and her sister ships for deployment. It's time to show the Galaxy Empire what happens when you ignore humanity. The workers in the control room began preparing for humanity's first real test against alien forces. None of them knew that this small engagement would be the beginning of a war that would reshape the entire galaxy. All they knew was that humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows, and their enemies were about to learn what that meant. Captain Zarthul of the Imperial vessel, Dominion's Fist, was not happy about his current assignment. He commanded one of 12 ships sent to investigate strange energy readings in a backwater system near a primitive planet called Earth. This was not the kind of mission that brought glory or promotion. Captain, we are approaching the source of the energy readings, reported his sensor officer, a reptilian creature with yellow eyes. Zarthul looked at the main display screen. It showed empty space with a few small objects floating in the darkness. The objects were clearly artificial, but they were tiny compared to Imperial installations. They looked like metal boxes with solar panels and communication antennas. What are these pathetic things? Zarthul asked. They appear to be primitive monitoring stations, his science officer replied. They are broadcasting sensor data back toward the 3rd planet in this system. The technology is very basic, but they are generating unusual quantum signatures. Zarthul frowned. The quantum signatures were what had attracted Imperial attention in the first place. No primitive species should be able to create such patterns, but looking at the crude monitoring stations, he could not imagine how such simple devices could produce anything interesting. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the 3rd planet, his communications officer announced. Put it on the screen, Zarthul ordered. The image showed a human in some kind of military uniform. The human looked nervous but was trying to appear confident. This is General Harrison of Earth Defense Command. You are in our solar system without permission. Please state your intentions. Zarthul laughed. The human was trying to sound threatening, but his ship was smaller than some of the fighters in Zarthul's fleet. Scan their planet. How many ships do they have? His sensor officer worked quickly. I detect approximately 200 small vessels in orbit around their planet. Most of them are transport ships or scientific stations. None of them have significant weapons. 200 ships, Zarthul said with amusement. We have 12 ships, and they have 200. They might think they have us outnumbered. His crew laughed. Even the smallest Imperial warship could destroy dozens of primitive vessels. The Dominion's Fist alone carried enough firepower to destroy everything in orbit around Earth. Zarthul activated his communications system. Primitive. Humans, I am Captain Zarthul of the Galactic Empire. You have placed monitoring devices in space that belongs to the Empire. Remove them immediately, or we will remove them for you. You have one of your local hours to comply. The human general on the screen looked confused. This is our home system. We have every right to place monitoring equipment here, and we have. Never heard of your galactic empire. Ignorance is not an excuse, Zarthul replied. The Empire claims all territory within 50 light-years of Imperial worlds. Your system falls within that boundary. Remove your devices or face the consequences. The transmission ended. Zarthul settled back in his command chair and waited. Sometimes primitive species tried to negotiate or ask for more time. Sometimes they attacked immediately with their pathetic weapons. Either way, the result was always the same. 1 hour passed, then 2 hours. The human monitoring stations remained in place, continuing to broadcast their sensor data. Zarthul was getting impatient. Captain, the humans are moving their orbital platforms, his sensor officer reported. Zarthul looked at the tactical display. The human orbital stations were indeed moving, but they were moving in impossible ways. They were changing direction without using any visible propulsion. They were accelerating faster than their construction should allow. How are they doing? That? Zarthul asked. His science officer studied the sensor readings carefully. I do not know, sir. Their propulsion systems should not be capable of such maneuvers. It is as if they are ignoring several laws of physics. Zarthul felt a small stab of unease. Primitive species were not supposed to have technology that confused Imperial scientists. But he pushed the feeling aside. Whatever tricks the humans were using, they could not possibly threaten Imperial warships. Sir, one of their space stations just disappeared, the sensor officer announced. Disappeared? Zarthul demanded. Destroyed? No, sir. It was there one moment and gone the next. No explosion, no debris, no energy signature. It simply vanished. Zarthul stared at the tactical display. The International Space Station, a primitive research facility, had indeed vanished completely. One moment it was orbiting Earth, and the next moment there was nothing there. Are your sensors malfunctioning? He asked. I do not think so, sir. All other readings are normal. Before Zarthul could respond, more human installations began disappearing. Not destroyed, not moving away, but simply ceasing to exist on Imperial sensors. Within minutes, most of Earth's orbital infrastructure had vanished. Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the planet, the communications officer reported. The same human general appeared on the screen, but now he looked confident instead of nervous. Captain Zarthul, you have 1 hour to leave our solar system. If you do not leave voluntarily, we will remove you by force. Zarthul could not believe what he was hearing. You dare threaten Imperial forces? You have seen our ships. You know you cannot match our firepower. We have seen your ships, the general agreed. Impressive, but outdated. Our technology has advanced beyond yours in ways you cannot imagine. Leave now, and no harm will come to you. The transmission ended. Zarthul was furious. No primitive species had ever dared to give ultimatums to Imperial forces. It was time to teach these humans their place in the galaxy. All ships assume battle. Formation, he commanded. Target the largest population centers on the third planet. We will show them the price of defying the Empire. His fleet moved into position around Earth. 12 massive warships, each one bristling with enough weapons to level continents. The humans had no idea what was about to happen to them. Sir, we are detecting new contacts, his sensor officer said suddenly. Multiple ships emerging from... I am not sure where they are coming from. Zarthul looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. Ships were appearing around his fleet, but they were not coming from anywhere. They were not approaching from the direction of Earth or from empty space. They were simply materializing out of nothing. The ships were unlike anything in Imperial databases. They were sleek and dark, with hulls that seemed to bend light around them. They were small compared to Imperial dreadnoughts, but something about them made Zarthul deeply uncomfortable. How many? He asked quietly. 37 ships, sir. They have us surrounded. Zarthul tried to maintain his composure. 37 ships against 12 should still favor the Empire, especially since Imperial ships were much larger and more heavily armed. But these ships had appeared from nowhere, and that was not supposed to be possible. We are receiving a transmission from one of the unknown vessels, his communications officer announced. The screen showed a human woman in a uniform that Zarthul did not recognize. She looked calm and confident, not at all like someone facing overwhelming Imperial firepower. "I am Commander Lisa Torres of the Terran Prototype Fleet," she said. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system before we demonstrate why ignoring humanity was your species' final mistake." Zarthul stared at her. "You cannot be serious. We have 12 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Your primitive weapons cannot even scratch our armor." Commander Torres smiled coldly. "Your armor is designed to stop energy beams and explosive projectiles. Our weapons do not use energy or explosives. They use principles of physics that your science has not discovered yet." "You are bluffing," Zarthul said. "No primitive species could threaten Imperial forces." "Primitive?" Torres laughed. "We have been watching your empire for 5 years. We have studied your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We know everything about you, but you know nothing about us because you were too arrogant to pay attention." The 30-second deadline passed. Zarthul made his decision. "All ships open fire. Destroy these impudent humans." 12 Imperial warships unleashed devastating barrages of energy beams and explosive missiles. The firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. Any normal fleet would have been vaporized instantly, but the human ships were not normal. The energy beams passed right through them as if they were firing at empty space. The missiles exploded, harmlessly against targets that seemed to exist in another dimension. "What is happening?" Zarthul demanded. "Our weapons are having no effect, sir," his tactical officer reported. "It is as if the enemy ships are not really there." Then the human ships fired back. Zarthul saw no energy beams, no missiles, no visible weapons at all. There was just a brief flicker of strange light from the enemy vessels. The Imperial dreadnought Eternal Glory was the first to be hit. The massive ship did not explode or break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was nothing but empty space where a kilometer-long warship used to be. Zarthul felt terror wash over him. In 300 years of Imperial conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Ships were destroyed in battle, but they did not just disappear completely. "All ships, retreat immediately," he ordered. "Fall back to the edge of the system." Admiral Vextar stood in his command center aboard the massive flagship Imperial Dominance. The ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Around him, the 3rd Imperial Battle Fleet spread across space like a metal constellation. 200 of the Empire's most powerful warships, representing the military might of nearly 1,000 worlds. "Sir, we are receiving Captain Zarthul's report," his communications officer announced. Vextar had been expecting this report. 12 ships had been sent to deal with some primitive humans who were causing minor problems in a backwater system. It should have been a simple cleanup operation completed within a few hours. "Put it on the main screen," Vextar ordered. "Captain." Zarthul appeared on the display, but something was wrong. The normally confident officer looked shaken and frightened. His ship showed signs of battle damage, and his crew moved with nervous urgency in the background. "Admiral, the mission has failed," Zarthul said without preamble. "The entire reconnaissance fleet has been destroyed." "I am the only survivor." Vextar felt a stab of disbelief. "Destroyed by primitive humans. Explain yourself, Captain." Zarthul's hands shook as he spoke. "Sir, they are not primitive. The humans have technology that defies explanation. Their ships can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their weapons erase matter from reality itself. We fired everything we had at them, and our attacks passed through them like they were ghosts." "That is impossible," Vextar said flatly. "Our intelligence reports clearly state that humans are a Class 7 civilization. They use chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They cannot possibly threaten Imperial forces." "The intelligence reports are wrong, sir," Zarthul replied. "Or they were wrong 5 years ago when the reports were made. The humans have been developing new technology in secret. They have been watching us, studying our communications, learning our weaknesses." Vextar felt anger rising in his chest. "You are telling me that 11 Imperial warships were destroyed by creatures that had not even achieved faster-than-light travel 5 years ago?" "Yes, sir. And there is more." Zarthul paused, clearly struggling with what he had to say next. "They sent a message for the Empire. They said that humanity is no longer hiding. They said they have been preparing while we ignored them, and they said they are coming for us next. The command center fell silent. Every officer on the bridge stared at the display in shocked disbelief. In the Empire's 1,000-year history, no primitive species had ever successfully resisted Imperial forces, let alone destroyed an entire fleet. Vextar turned to his science officer. Is there any known technology that could produce the effects Captain Zarthul describes? The science officer, a brilliant creature from one of the Empire's most advanced worlds, looked confused. Admiral, the technology he describes should not be possible. Ships cannot exist in multiple dimensions. Weapons cannot erase matter from reality. These things violate fundamental laws of physics. Then how do you explain what happened? Vextar demanded. I cannot, sir. Either Captain Zarthul is mistaken about what he saw, or these humans have discovered principles of science that we do not understand. Vextar considered both possibilities. Zarthul was an experienced officer who had served in dozens of campaigns. He was not prone to panic or exaggeration. If he said he had seen ships disappear and weapons erase matter, then that was probably what had happened. But the alternative was even more disturbing. If humans had somehow developed technology beyond Imperial science, then everything the Empire thought it knew about the galaxy was wrong. Admiral, we are approaching the target system, his navigation officer announced. Vextar turned his attention to the tactical display. The Third Imperial battle fleet was approaching the system that contained Earth. 200 massive warships, each one capable of destroying planets. If the humans really had advanced technology, this force would test the limits of their capabilities. What are our sensor readings showing? Vexitar asked. His sensor officer worked at his station for several minutes before responding. Sir, I am detecting the wreckage of Captain Zarthul's fleet arranged in a perfect geometric pattern around the third planet. The debris has been positioned deliberately, as if someone was sending a message. Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that primitive humans would arrange the wreckage of Imperial ships as a display was deeply unsettling. It showed a level of contempt and confidence that no enemy had ever displayed toward the Empire. Any sign of the enemy fleet? He asked. That is the strange thing, sir. I am not detecting any ships at all. No energy signatures, no mass readings, nothing. It is as if the system is completely empty except for the wreckage and the planet itself. Vextar frowned. Where were the ships that had destroyed Zarthul's fleet? Had they left the system? Were they hiding somewhere beyond sensor range? Admiral, I am getting very unusual readings from the planet, the sensor officer continued. There are massive energy sources beneath the surface, but I cannot identify what they are. And there are structures in orbit that seem to phase in and out of existence. Show me, Vextar ordered. The main display changed to show Earth as seen from space. At first glance, it looked like any other inhabited planet. Blue oceans, white, clouds, green and brown continents. But as Vextar watched, strange things began to happen. Objects appeared in orbit around the planet, remained visible for a few seconds, then vanished again. They looked like space stations or orbital platforms, but they were using technology that allowed them to exist partially outside normal space. Admiral, we are being scanned, his sensor officer announced. Multiple high-powered sensor beams are analyzing our fleet from unknown sources. Can you track the sources? Vextar asked. No, sir. The scans seem to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It is as if the entire system has become one massive sensor array. Vextar was beginning to understand why Zarthul had looked so frightened. Nothing in this system behaved according to known laws of physics. Everything suggested that humans had access to technology that the Empire could not comprehend. Sir, we are receiving a transmission, his communications officer announced. From Earth? Vextar asked. I do not know, sir. The transmission seems to be coming from multiple locations simultaneously. The main display flickered and changed to show a human woman in a military uniform. She had dark hair and calm, confident eyes. Behind her, Vextar could see what looked like the interior of a starship, but the technology was completely unfamiliar. I am Commander Lisa Torres of the Terran Prototype Fleet, the woman said. You must be Admiral Vextar. We have been monitoring Imperial communications networks for years. We know who you are and why you are here. Vextar tried to maintain his composure, but he felt deeply unsettled by the woman's calm confidence. I am here to investigate the destruction of Imperial forces and to punish those responsible, Commander Torres smiled. You are here because your empire made the same mistake that empires throughout history have made. You assumed that technological superiority would last forever. You became arrogant and lazy. You stopped innovating because you thought you had already won. Human technology cannot match Imperial science, Vextar replied. We have had faster-than-light travel for over 1,000 years. We have conquered nearly 1,000 star systems. Your species had not even left your home planet when we first catalogued you. That is true, Torres agreed, but you made one critical error in your thinking. You assumed that technological development follows a straight line. You assumed that because we were behind you 5 years ago, we would always be behind you. She paused and leaned forward in her chair. But human development does not follow a straight line, Admiral. When we are motivated properly, we make leaps that seem impossible, and nothing motivates humans quite like the threat of extinction. The display behind Torres changed to show technical diagrams of human ships. Vextar studied them carefully, but the technology was completely beyond his understanding. The ships seemed to use principles that his science said were impossible. 5 years ago, you dismissed us as primitive, Torres continued. You were right. We were primitive. But we were also curious. When we found fragments of your technology, we did not just try to copy it. We tried to understand it, and then we tried to improve it. Impossible, Vextar said. Imperial technology represents thousands of years of development by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Your technology is impressive, Torres agreed. But it is also predictable. You build bigger ships with more powerful weapons. You use brute force to solve problems. That approach works well against civilizations that think the same way you do. The display changed again to show recordings of recent Imperial battles. Vextar watched his own fleets destroying enemy forces with overwhelming firepower. The tactics were always the same. Close to weapons range and pound the enemy until they surrendered or died. But humans think differently, Torres said. We do not try to build bigger hammers. We try to find ways to make hammers unnecessary. While you were building ships that could destroy planets, we were building ships that could make planets forget how to exist. Vextar felt cold fear creeping up his spine. What are you saying? I am saying that your fleet is already lost, Admiral. The Imperial Council chamber on the capital world of Zentara Prime had never been so quiet. 50 representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy sat around a massive circular table, but none of them spoke. They all stared at the holographic display in the center of the room that showed the wreckage of the Third Imperial Battle Fleet. Emperor Thexran, ruler of 850 star systems and supreme commander of the galaxy's most powerful military, looked older than his 800 years. The report from Admiral Vextar sat on the table before him, but he had already read it a dozen times. The words did not change, no matter how often he read them. Explain to me again how 200 of our most powerful warships were destroyed by a primitive species that had not achieved faster-than-light travel 5 years ago, the Emperor said quietly. Fleet Admiral Kossadar, the Empire's highest military officer, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Your Majesty, Admiral Vexitar's report is consistent with earlier reports from Captain Zarthul. The humans have developed technology that operates on principles our science does not understand. Our science has been superior to every other civilization in the galaxy for over 1,000 years, the Emperor replied. We have conquered worlds that had advanced technology. We have destroyed fleets that outnumbered us. How can one primitive planet threaten the entire empire? Because they were never primitive, Your Majesty, said Science Advisor Meltas, the Empire's most brilliant researcher. They were just developing differently than we expected. The Emperor turned his attention to the Science Advisor. Explain. Meltas activated a new holographic display that showed the development timeline of various civilizations. Most species follow predictable development patterns. They discover fire, then metalworking, then electricity, then nuclear power, then faster-than-light travel. Each step builds on the previous steps in a logical sequence. The display showed dozens of civilization timelines, all following similar patterns. But one timeline was different. showing wild jumps and sudden leaps in capability. Humans developed differently, Malthus continued. They made sudden jumps in capability that skipped entire developmental stages. In just 5 years, they went from chemical rockets to technology that can manipulate the fundamental structure of reality. How is that possible? The Emperor asked. We believe they reverse-engineered fragments of alien technology that they recovered from various sources, Malthus replied. But instead of simply copying the technology, they improved upon it. They found ways to make it more efficient, more powerful, more versatile. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. And now they are using that technology against us. Yes, Your Majesty. And according to Admiral Vexitar's report, they claim to be preparing for offensive operations against Imperial territory. The chamber fell silent again. The idea that a single planet could threaten the entire galactic empire was almost impossible to accept. But the evidence was undeniable. 2 Imperial fleets had been completely destroyed, and the survivors reported weapons and technology that defied explanation. What are our options? The Emperor asked. Fleet Admiral Kostar spoke first. We could mobilize the entire Imperial Navy, every ship, every weapon, every soldier. Concentrate everything on destroying Earth before they can launch their offensive. How many ships would that require? The Emperor asked. Approximately 10,000 vessels, Your Majesty. It would leave our other territories completely undefended, but it would represent overwhelming force against a single planet. The Emperor considered this option. 10,000 ships was the largest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy's history. But if human technology could erase Imperial ships from reality, would even 10,000 ships be enough? What other options do we have? He asked. Science Advisor Malthus spoke up. We could attempt to negotiate, Your Majesty. If the humans have technology superior to ours, perhaps we could reach some kind of agreement. Several council members laughed bitterly at this suggestion. The Empire had never negotiated with inferior species. The idea of treating humans as equals was almost as disturbing as the idea of being defeated by them. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives, growled General Vexthor, the Emperor's military advisor. They are no longer primitives, Malthus replied. If Admiral Vextar's report is accurate, their technology is now superior to ours in several key areas. Impossible, General Vexthor said. No species could advance so quickly without outside help. They did have outside help, Malthus pointed out. They had our help. They studied our technology, learned from our mistakes, and found ways to improve upon our designs. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. There is a third option. We could withdraw from human space and establish a defensive perimeter around our core territories, fortify our borders, and wait to see what they do next. This suggestion was met with even more resistance from the military officers. The Empire had never retreated from any enemy. The idea of giving up territory to primitive humans was unthinkable. Your Majesty, Fleet Admiral Kostar said carefully, if we withdraw from human space, we send a message to every other civilization in the galaxy that the Empire can be defeated. We would face rebellions on 100 worlds. The Emperor nodded, grimly. This was the Empire's greatest fear. For 1,000 years, they had maintained control through the belief that Imperial forces were invincible. If that belief was shattered, the entire Empire could collapse within months. Then we have no choice, the Emperor said finally. We must mobilize every ship and destroy Earth before they can threaten our other territories. As the council members began discussing the details of the massive fleet mobilization, none of them noticed the small quantum fluctuations occurring in the chamber's walls. None of them realized that their entire conversation was being transmitted through alien communication networks to a small blue planet 40 light-years away. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the Project Prometheus Command Center, listening to every word the Imperial Council spoke. The alien communication technology that humanity had mastered allowed them to tap into any quantum network in the galaxy, including the most secure Imperial channels. They are mobilizing their entire fleet, she said to Commander Lisa Torres, who had just returned from the battle with Admiral Vexitar's forces. How many ships? Torres asked. Approximately 10,000 vessels. Every major warship in the Imperial Navy, plus support craft and troop transports. Torres nodded thoughtfully. That is actually good news. Sarah looked surprised. Good news? They are sending 10,000 ships to destroy Earth. They are sending 10,000 ships to one location, Torres corrected. If we can defeat them here, the Empire will have no significant military forces left. We can end this war in a single battle. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Humanity had built an impressive fleet of prototype ships, but they had fewer than 200 vessels. Even with their advanced technology, the odds would be overwhelming. Do we have enough ships? She asked. Torres smiled. We do not need to match them ship for ship, Sarah. We just need to be smarter than they are. And humans have always been very good at being smarter than their enemies. She walked over to a tactical display that showed the positions of all human ships. The fleet was spread throughout the solar system, hidden in quantum phase space where Imperial sensors could not detect them. The Empire thinks in terms of brute force, Torres continued. They will bring their entire fleet to Earth and try to overwhelm us with superior numbers. But we have been preparing for exactly this scenario. The display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the solar system with thousands of small objects scattered throughout. To Imperial sensors, they would look like asteroids and space debris, but they were actually quantum mines, each one capable of erasing matter from reality. We have turned the entire solar system into a trap, Torres explained. When the Imperial fleet arrives, they will be entering a killing field designed specifically for large-scale fleet engagements. Sarah studied the tactical display carefully. Humanity had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. Every piece of alien technology they had recovered, every breakthrough they had achieved, every lesson they had learned had been focused on this single goal: defeating the Galactic Empire in one decisive battle. How long until they arrive? She asked. Based on Imperial fleet speeds, approximately 2 weeks, Torres replied. That gives us time to complete our final preparations and position our ships for maximum effectiveness. She turned to address the entire command center. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have been working toward for 5 years. The Empire dismissed us as primitive. They ignored us because we seemed weak. But we used that time to study them, to understand them, and to prepare weapons specifically designed to defeat them. The room fell silent as everyone focused on Torres's words. In 2 weeks, the Empire will send their entire fleet to destroy us, she continued. They think they are coming to crush a rebellion. What they do not know is that they are coming to their own funeral. Torres paused and looked around the room at the faces of the men and women who had made humanity's victory possible. We are about to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the human species.